Have you guys ever wondered how people with slower mechanics and a less aggressive playstyle still do really well in comp? While they might not be instant killing players like Peterbot, they're doing a bunch of things that give value to themselves, so they get picked up by better teammates and get more earnings and PR than most of us, and how you can add a lot of value to yourself even if you're not the best fighter. While we should all still work on our fighting, these are the things that people don't talk about as much, and how you can work on them to add extra value, and maybe you'll get picked up by a better team because you have a certain asset or skill. The first thing I think we should talk about is AR aim. AR aim is not really talked about as much, but if you're the guy who can get the first beam off every fight and be able to get a quick dead or something just by hitting all headshots or something, this can be a great asset to your team. And aiming really isn't the hardest thing to practice. It's pretty straightforward. You work on your aim, you work on your bullet drop. It's not that hard. It just takes a few hours, like an hour or less in creative every week to get better at this. Just working on some of the aim maps that work on the bullet drop can have the world of difference, and a bad player can be the guy spraying and be the guy assisting the fraggers, because just putting down good pressure and extra little damages here and there can make the other players panic and allow your actual fraggers on your team that are good at fighting to finish off the fight fast. This is just a great underrated asset, and while shotgun aim is very important, I lack shotgun aim and you can always work on it, but it is much harder, I think, in my opinion, to get better at it because your sensitivity is normally higher for your shotguns. But besides that, aim is always going to be king. Even if you jump in somebody's box, the person with the better aim normally wins. Because if you're hitting the 190 and they hit 100, you're probably going to win that fight because all you have to do is hit one more little bullet with your AR SMG. That advantage makes, let's say if you're not the fastest editor, that you can just come back, has insane bailouts, and keep you alive in endgames or when other people jump in your box. Another thing is going to be on the other side of IGLing and strategy. A lot of people's IGLing can really make a team better, but even if you're not the greatest endgame IGL, there's still things you can do to prepare as you're working on your IGLing. Things like strategy is one of the most underrated things. One of my main things that I have an advantage over most people is the early start of a game. If you can start the game with amazing loot and an amazing mats and advantage, you can win a lot more fights. So for example, this season I land Doom Castle. It might be only conned by one other or two other teams. So if I land on a Doom chest, I normally get a blue or better shotgun, or at least some good loot, or a good AR or something. This can give you a big advantage because let's say if the other person dropped on some random chest, got a white sovereign, and you have a purple gatekeeper, even if the person's a lot better than you, you can easily kill them because you're just gonna have more damage than them. And if you have good aim, it's even easier. With this, you also can have mat locations planned out. If you're the guy that has more mats in the fight, and you just waste the other guy's mats, you can win a lot of fights because you force the other player to basically play zero builds. This worked really well in Doom Castle because I would get my Doom chest, get my loot, drop down, get the rocks that have 150 mats each for brick, and have maybe 400 brick compared to the other person that might have shambles loot like 100. So this allows you to win more fights, allows you to give more time for your teammates to come help you, and just allows you to not die. And that's really another thing that's going to be the next thing. If your ability to run away and to not die, that gives you a big value to your team, because if you're always the last alive, you can clutch up end games, and you can also just assist your teammates for as long as possible. It also makes it a lot easier to find teammates because people are going to want to keep playing with you if you're always the last one to die. Because if you're always the first one to die, that's kind of a red flag that you're a bad player or you're a bad person on your team, because the more players alive at once is so much more important than even a lot of other skills. With this, another thing is teamwork. I didn't really understand how just important this skill is until I joined some of other trios, because I met some duos that were already established that maybe they had one good fighter or they had 0 good fighters, but when people's teamwork was so good that it didn't matter how good their fighting skills were, they just needed good aim and they could outsmart the players and fry and solo and split solos off from each other and get free kills and end fights faster. While teamwork is so important, it takes another bit of IGLing and other kinds of just brain power in general. If you're the guy making smart plays, it's always gonna probably outbeat the people with skill unless they're largely better than you. Because if you're the guy who can know how to rotate endgame or just telling your teammates to not do something when they're about to make a stupid play, that adds so much value to your team. Because a lot of players, if they're good fraggers, they might not be good IGLs, they might not be good just smart players, they might just be mostly like relying on their fighting skills. So if you're the guy to tell them don't make that stupid play and save your team's life, you're gonna have a positive value in the end because you're gonna you're gonna have better end games, you're gonna make it to end games more because you're not taking stupid fights, and you're also more controlling your teammates because being a leader is so important in trios. If you can control your teammates and put them in the best position possible to get kills and to really get refreshes for you, you're gonna have a better time because you're just gonna be just having more success. Because let's say if you're making bad pushes, it is astronomically harder to do well, because a bad push, even against a worse team, if they're on high ground and you get beamed, you could be wasting all your meds, even if you win the fight in the end. So taking good fights and just general game knowledge, I think, is so underrated. Just knowing when to pickaxe walls and when to shoot walls, when to switch to your AR instead of using your shotgun. It's just tiny things like that that can really allow you to win those fights that you shouldn't be winning because of your skill level. That's about it for this video. If you guys have any other ideas for what you guys think you could add more value, of course there's going to be other things that I'm not thinking about, just like baiting and different gameplay, like how my last video really worked on how to bait people and stuff, and that's kind of another thing that can add value to you, but I'll let you watch that video right up at the top here or in the comment section. And yeah guys, that's about it. Hopefully this helped you a little bit. Maybe you guys don't have the best ping or something, or your fingers are slow or something, and you're just not that guy with mechanics. You can still be a good competitive player, and I think a lot of players can be really good assets to their team. Like, let's say Courage JD, this is a funny joke, but Courage JD, let's say he has good aim, good teamwork, he plays with clicks and gets a 150 in that. Most players like him and Frantic didn't really do very well, but him and Courage JD, he knew his weaknesses, and just knowing your weaknesses can be the difference because you don't overplay your hand. You're not making silly things. You don't think you're better than you actually are. Because if you're taking fights you're not going to win, it's not really even better. Even if you're a worse player, if you're not taking fights, then you're going to probably have a better time. Sometimes you need to take fights though, and that's where fighting really comes into play. And sometimes you just have to win that fight because you get griefed or something. And that's how better fighters are always going to have a large advantage, like Peterbot. He can just win everything, even if he doesn't have an IGL on his team. But that's besides the point. That's not really the focus of the video. I hope you have an amazing day. Hopefully you leave a like and a subscribe. So have a good one, and stay happy.